Welcome to B2B Commerce Corner. Commerce Corner is a sub-series of the E-Commerce Edge podcast discussing all things B2B commerce through the lens of agencies, consultants, merchants, and more. Enjoy.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Daniel GEIGER, and I am with GreenWing Technology. We are punch-out catalog specialists, and we help retailers, distributors, and manufacturers connect to those customers that use e-procurement systems. I'd like to welcome today my friends Jason Greenwood and Jack CRAVY. Jack CRAVY with Cart.com and Jason Greenwood with a wonderful podcast business and expert in everything B2B e-commerce.
And Greenwood Consulting, which is actually my bread and butter.
Yes, of course. Today, we're just going to discuss everything from the evolving landscape of B2B e-commerce, all the different trends that we expect in 2025, and different insights on how to embrace that whole digital transformation, just to future-proof your business for success. Love to kick it off and have Jason lead us through this conversation, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, gents. I really appreciate you having this convo with me today and making me a part of this sort of fireside roundtable chat kind of thing. Look, there's been some really interesting developments in B2B commerce over the last 12, 24 months. We've all been a part of it. We've all been deeply embedded in it. I'm seeing some trends start to emerge. One of the things I'm starting to see is that at least for me personally, as far as my consulting, I've had more inquiries in the first 3 weeks of January than I did in the entire fourth quarter of 2024. So definitely B2B sellers, manufacturers, wholesalers, distributors, they seem to be getting finally a bit of e-com religion. They seem to be getting some automation religion. They're hearing all sorts of noise about DeepSeek and AI and automation and all these things. And they're going, man, we don't want to miss, we missed the digitalization train before, but we cannot miss the AI train because we think that's going to bring some efficiency to our business. But what I find oftentimes when I'm going in there, and they might ask me initially, hey, how can we inject AI into our business? But it's like, whoa, let's a crawl, walk, run approach here. You're not doing digital commerce at all today. And maybe we start there. Maybe we start with getting you set up with getting your data ready, getting your product data ready, getting your customer data ready, getting your systems ready, getting your integration layer all ready to go. And then we start thinking about, okay, cool. What are the digital sales and service channels that you are not using today at all in your business? Let's look at getting those in place first before we have to start even thinking about AI, because AI, all your vendors that you'll potentially be working with are already thinking about that on your behalf. You don't need to worry about AI today in your business because every single vendor that you are and will likely ever work with, they're trying to think about that. And you two, from a tech vendor perspective, is every single customer that's talking to you today saying, hey, what AI have you got in your platform? Is that the type of questions they're leading with, or are they so green in many instances, play on the words greenwing there, are they so green that sometimes when they get to you, they just go, we know we have to digitalize, we don't even know where to start, help us?
Yeah, so in our case, many of our customers, oftentimes they hear punch outs the first time. This is the first time they've heard it, and now it's a requirement. So for them, it's our job. My job is mostly education, Jason. It's not even sales. Yeah, so you're trying to just explain to people what the technology is, why you should use it, and then how to be successful from it. And what I always do too with our customers, I always go, look, who is the gold standard in your category? That's the best way. Who is a gold standard in your business and that you compete with or that you want to become? And what are they doing and what are they doing well? And I always say, look, I can guarantee you they're using punch out. And they've been using it probably for a lot longer than you think, because it's been around for decades. So they've been using it for well over 10 years, and they're very successful at it. So now it's just a matter of, all right, what you mentioned, that crawl, walk, run approach. Let's just get one integration. You have one customer, one buyer. It's always the hardest, right? Because these customers, they just got a website, they just got e-commerce. They're trying to figure out how to sell to customers, and now they're getting these weird punch-out requirements. So that's what we say. Look, we'll hold your hand, and this is what we do. Yeah, that's why we've been doing it for 15 years. Let's take that first step. We'll integrate. We'll make it as painless as possible. And we'll worry about everything technical, so you don't have to. That's always our job, is that we want to grow with you. And that's how we always look at our company. When you get more integrations with Punch Out, when you start to use that as a new sales channel, we grow with you. So we want you to be successful. So that's part of our business model, is to help you find these opportunities to build your company. And as we said, Punch Out is just like one little piece. We're such a little niche to this huge B2B e-commerce ecosystem, but it's so critical, right? It's just a critical piece that for a lot of companies, they have to have it. When you're talking AI, AI is such a pie in the sky. It's such a buzzwordy term. And for us, it's all about the analytics, and it's coming along too with our AI tools, and just in general, these companies. That's, for me, like you said, you gotta get your data right, your e-commerce right. Then you start looking at Punch Out and some of these other integration tools, and let's go from there. But yeah, for us, it's our customers usually come in, they never heard of Punch Out, half of them. But a lot of them, at least what I'll say now, whereas in the beginning they were kicking and screaming because they had to do it, most of them are pretty excited about it. This is a great opportunity. They really are, because a lot of them are younger. Now, as we're seeing a lot of younger people who are looking, this is a really great chance for us to actually get real sales from our catalog. Yeah, that's how we look at it now as we grow it with customers, and how we approach it when we're talking to new businesses.
Yeah, I think from the cart.com, we've had a lot of customers ask us about how AI is going to come into the fold as far as services or software that we're offering to our merchants. And it's a wide range of customers and service that we service and offer products to. And I always lead with this, and you got to remember, I'm in the bucket of the e-commerce platform that our merchants are using for B2B use case scenarios. And from a B2B platform side, there is some ways that we can introduce AI, and we plan to introduce AI mainly for like content generation and things of that nature for marketing purposes. If you think about what's a description text on the same polo t-shirt that 50,000 other people are selling the same of, right? Things of that nature, or importing a catalog and understanding what category do these products need to go into. Here's some suggestions. And our sister company under Cart, Data Feed Watch, is now the first AI feed management tool in the world, as far as like Google data feed, as well as like Facebook, Pinterest, and others that they're connected with. And so there's obviously lots of areas there. But for the B2B customers that come into my world, there's not a ton of AI that is going to be a game changer, right, for what they're expecting for their business. Now, that's on the order management side. Once you get past order management and you start talking about fulfillment or inventory forecasting or planning, or like operational, like machinery, even things like, right, like all of that AI will be able to touch and have added value over time. But it's going to happen slow. It's not going to happen overnight. Just because you hear the buzzwords, just because you're playing with ChatGPT, doesn't necessarily mean all of our systems are a full go on AI. Just we're able to provide the most value in using it. We definitely don't want to overbuild and then not have anybody adopt it and not bring revenue to be able to justify the investment. And I think a lot of other companies are looking at the same thing, like how much do we push? How much do we innovate? Where can we add value? And those are the same discussions we're having here internally here at Cart. Now, I will say, this reminds me of annual conference that I went to in September for the TRSA, which is uniform manufacturers, distributors, people that do rental programs, things of that nature. And it's an exclusive club, a lot of executives. And one of the keynote speakers was on a giant talk about how AI and how it was going to revolutionize business and how that might be applicable to a lot of the companies that were in that conference that we were at. But it wasn't about the software, like the ordering management piece of it. An order's an order, right? A catalog is a catalog. He was really more talking about how AI could come in and replace people, right? The actual people that are working and folding and doing those different things, and how robotics is going to be introduced with AI, and that you're going to need less humans to be able to do the same business that you were today. Yes, I do think that it will have an impact, and I agreed with that sentiment. But as far as having it introduced to all of your software components immediately, providing value day one, maybe pause the brakes a little on that one. And it was funny because after the conference, or later in the evening when we were having drinks, the after hours, everybody there was just like, guys, we can't even get a spreadsheet of our products that we offer, or our parts that we offer for our machines that wash the laundry or prepare the clothing, right? And so it's like, we're so far behind in the digital age. Just to your point, Jason, it's like, I think maybe it's a good thought for 10 years from now on how we're going to adopt some of that. But yeah, so even they were skeptical as far as day one value that they were going to get out of it.
And Jack, I'd love to know what percentage, roughly high level, of your customers start to open a dialogue with you around digital technologies, digital commerce technologies, because of someone like Dan, where they have a customer, for example, that says, hey, we'd love to sign a PSA with you, a preferred supplier agreement with you. However, we use Coupa, we use GEIGER, we use some module in our ERP to manage all of our procurement and automate all of our procurement process. But therefore, we can't make you a preferred supplier if you cannot service us through platforms and technologies like Dan, which allows that punch-out connection on their end to be able to pull that catalog into their e-procurement system, to be able to place those orders in a super automated way. But on the other side of it, they don't have an electronic catalog. Maybe they've got one in their ERP, and that's not an ideal place to try to go and gather information that's maybe not structured in a way that's user-friendly, right? It might be sales rep friendly in the ERP, but it certainly isn't user-friendly or customer-friendly in many instances. Yeah. So how often is it that the buy side, the procurement side, has put pressure on the suppliers to say, hey, look, you have to digitalize because it is too expensive to do business with you unless we can automate some or all of this process. And then they come to you and they say, look, you're the first step in the chain. We have to have a digital catalog up and running. Maybe if we don't from day one transact through that digital catalog apart from maybe punch out or EDI, but we have to digitalize. We have to make the first tentative steps along our digitalization journey, and that starts with the catalog. And they come to you and they go, geez, can you help us?
Yeah, I see a lot. We have historically not seen it as much as we have seen now. There's definitely been a large uptick over the past few years. And I don't think that has been a change of requirements that you're seeing amongst these customers that are now asking for it in their RFIs and RFPs. But personally, just with our technology, we are going more and more upmarket to larger brands as we serve them. And because of that, we are looking for larger prospects than we've ever seen before. And all of these prospects, I would say the majority of, have an RFP and RFI process, which if you're doing small business, you don't even see that. They just come to you and say, I need this service. And as you start looking through the RFPs and RFIs of the customers that are going to align with what we offer, at least half, I would say, require an integration to a punch-out system, right? Or need a punch-out system that they can work with. And if it wasn't for GreenWing, we would not be able to be, if they weren't such a good partner, we wouldn't be able to
they wouldn't be in the running.
In the ring for
your customers wouldn't be in the running with their customers.
Right. Yeah, it's really both in a scenario, right? And so when we're actually filling out the RFIs and RFPs, we're seeing Coupa, we're seeing Workday, we're seeing all of these different systems that require punch out to work. And I went on a facility tour with our fulfillment team with a very large prospect. And it was, if you didn't have that, the conversation would go nowhere. But because we did have GreenWing as a partner, and we could go into this offering a full e-commerce experience within their existing systems, they were very interested. And that opens up to not just the ordering platform, but the fulfillment services and the forecasting services and everything else that goes along with the account. And so it becomes like a window of an opportunity to now completely renovate or innovate in that company's division that they were looking to do with us. Because we have a way to be able to operate within their system. But to answer your question, we're seeing it at least in half the RFIs or RFPs, where working with their existing technology is a requirement.
And Dan, now this is something that even we discussed before about your sort of stack, your platform, and what you facilitate. How often is it, because I'm starting to see more and more conversations with the manufacturers and distributors that I work with, they're trying to get into much larger either buying groups. They're trying to sell to buyer groups or co-ops, or they're also trying to sell to governments, for example, and going through government procurement processes that they almost always dictate from that procurement side. Okay, here's the system we use. If you want to put a tender in for supplying us these things, whether it's as a one-off or an ongoing thing, you have to be able to integrate with our systems. Otherwise, you can't even put in a bid, so to speak, or you can't even put it in an offer. You can't even apply for this particular grant or this particular contract or whatever it might be. You can't even be in the running unless you can tender in the way that we expect you to tender and supply in the way we expect you to supply.
We're seeing a lot more now. So especially with government, a lot of government contracts, they will require that, even if you don't They don't want punch out from you right away. They want to know that you're willing to do it and you have the capability to do it. And it is interesting with that. You mentioned like buying groups. We're part of a group called Net Plus. It's for industrial distributors. And I remember I went to our first conference a year ago, and it was an eye opener because I came in, I was like, all right, let the leads start rolling in. I had a great booth right in front of everybody. And by the second day, after like meeting with probably 30, 40 different companies and then talking to the people at Net Plus, I came to the realization that less than half of them even have websites. So yeah, there's a lot of work. And a lot of these companies will never, again, they'll never have e-commerce. They just might not have e-commerce. That's just a fact, just general in business. But if you want to be successful and if you want to grow and you want to compete, you're going to have these different tools. And getting back to a platform like cart.com, I want to always mention was a composability. Another buzzy term, but it is really true. It's like these systems for just be able to, when you're looking at different prospects, bigger prospects, they might not need everything that you have. They might just need pieces. So you want to meet them where they're at and be that. Yeah. So I see this composability and punch out. Again, it's just another piece that has to fit in. So when I used to reach out to different platforms like 5-6 years ago, say, hey, have you ever heard of punch out? We do it. Can we build a connector for your platform? Most of the time, people will never respond if I would call them, or they just wouldn't. But now it's not the case. Like everybody does. At least they'll tell me, yes, we actually would like to have another third-party option for our customers, or we already have something baked in, and we do it ourselves. It's not very good. It doesn't do POs and invoicing, just straight punch out. So it would be good. Or yeah, we already have that and we're fine. But everybody now they all get it. They're all responding. But yeah, I'm not trying to remember your initial question, but another B2B marketplaces is another that we're now people are reaching out to us that they have B2B, they're operating a B2B marketplace and now they need to connect to procurement systems. And I'm like, that makes sense because you're selling to institutional buyers and they use procurement, e-procurement. So you need a punch out. So we're getting a lot now too from B2B marketplaces, which is another new, I don't know if it's a buzzword, but it's definitely growing. Just opportunities everywhere if you're a distributor in the US.
I think if you see, or one of the reasons for the growth that we've seen lately is also security, right? Like multi-factor authentication is everywhere on every device, on every tool. 10 years ago, that was not the case. And so what's happening is companies are requiring higher security standards than they ever have. And part of that is being able to have e-procurement within their system so that they know who it is, they know the user, they know when they made the purchase, they know when they logged in, they know it was authenticated correctly. And so as you see more and more security requirements get passed by government, by businesses, et cetera, that are trying to go IPO or trying to go public or getting acquired by others that are in the public space, the more acquisitions you have, the more these companies need to be able to boost or bolster their security. It's one of the driving factors. It just is. They want their employees doing everything within their own ecosystem in a safe and secure manner. And as a result of that, you're saying, how can we shop? How can we offer products? How can we allow people to buy from other vendors in the same way? And it's just another driving force. You didn't see that 10 years ago. You didn't see that 20 years ago. You just had to have a password to log into everything. And so there's a lot of reasons for it, for sure. But at the end of the day, it's I'll take whatever reason it is, because what you're doing is you're enabling a better experience for the buyers, even if they are employees of their company, right? Nobody wants to be able to buy with a PDF and an email and a conversation and require 3 or 4 phone calls to be able to make something happen, because nobody likes that at the end of the day.
Do you guys think though it's a big driver that, Jack, is just the fact that all the baby boomers are now retired or retiring? And it really is. You just see the youth, kids coming out of college, younger buyers in their 20s. It's just the expectation at this point that businesses have to keep up where their customers are at.
You're seeing it everywhere, but I wouldn't say dying off is the right term. Retiring, right, or moving on, but you definitely see younger people in higher positions where a strong experience is table stakes now versus a pie in the sky or a dream. This is now the industry standard that we have to adhere to. And so they're introducing that to their companies, and I'm here for it. So,
Forrester, to your point, Dan, Forrester released a report, I think it was in November of 2024, so at the end of last year, that showed that 71% of B2B buyers today in the United States are now millennials and Gen Z. So we now have digital natives being the overwhelming majority of B2B buyers today. So to your point, the legacy B2B buyers, the good old boys club, so to speak, is aging out of the industry super rapidly. And so as the buying demographic, the procurement demographic changes, so does the selling demographic have to change and have to adapt and have to adjust and have to keep up. And in fact, I've termed 2025 the year of meeting customers where they are. And I recently had on my podcast, I had the guys over at Go Motivate on the pods. And one of the things that they're doing, and some of the other platform vendors, I know, Jack, you guys are looking at it, and some of the other platform vendors are looking at it, but what they're doing is they're saying, hey, we can assure adoption of our digital technologies, our digital commerce stack, if we continue to allow our customers to do things the way they've always done them, but we automate them on inbound to us. So we don't force them to change. If they're already talking to their sales rep on WhatsApp, if they're already sending emails to their sales rep via WhatsApp or customer service via WhatsApp, if they're already sending messages to us on Teams or Slack or whatever it is, and they want to just attach a PDF of the PO to an email or to a WhatsApp message, then we should facilitate that. And we should look at those as headless commerce channels, right? And so I think, headless gets, headless, another buzzword. And I don't think headless has nearly as much application in the B2C and D2C world as it actually does in the B2B world, oddly, because we need to make commerce available everywhere our customers are, whether that's punch out, e-procurement, EDI, WhatsApp, carrier pigeon, self-service e-commerce, doesn't matter. We should be able to facilitate that so that by default, we get high levels of adoption of our digital services layer. And the technology is now getting there, especially with multimodal AI now, where it can take all this unstructured data, it can take PDFs, it can take CSVs, it can take all this unstructured data, and then it can map it into our systems in ways that we, even a year ago, were almost impossible to do. And so I think I'd like to help coach my clients down the path of thinking of channels like Punchout. Just think of these as almost like headless commerce channels, because that's actually what they are. You now, literally, by adopting Punchout or adopting a digital catalog first, now all of a sudden you can expose that across 100 different buying channels, and regardless of what that looks like. But it oftentimes starts with getting their data in order, because again, as I've said, sometimes their product data is spread on a network drive. Sometimes it's in PDF. Sometimes it's in print catalog. Sometimes it's in a sales rep's head. And that stuff, when these people age out, right, the problem is these B2B suppliers are losing a lot of tribal and institutional knowledge out of their businesses because they haven't digitalized them. And this is something that actually is prompting a lot of my customers to come to me. Oh, Bob, he's been working for us for 30 years and he's about to retire. We got to get that information out of his head and into our catalog, because it's got to become a one-to-many piece of knowledge. Are you guys seeing that too?
Company, honestly, it is such a pain point, procedures. And it's not even technology, though. I don't even think that's a technology thing, Jay, to be honest with you. I think it's almost every time we do an integration, we have notes on that specific integration, what specific version of Ariba we're using, everything down the line. So the next time we do a similar integration, we have data on that. Every single, we have those wiki pages. So I don't know, that's technology, right? It's a matter of Bob having his knowledge, who's retiring. He should have notes and procedures of everything he's done. So that's almost like a business issue, right? Technology, but a lot of that's how you're at this problem because he didn't take care of his 20 years when he should have been documenting everything. But that is actually something we really started doing about 5 years ago with every integration, and it takes a while to start paying off because there's so much work to get it going. But now it's, wow, you have all this information that we can all tie into. Whenever there's a problem or a bug, we can always go back. But that's for having procedures in place. So when you bring in new hires, new people, to understand the actual steps of an integration, or setting up a person's catalog, or he had this bug or error, this issue, and you have notes on that you can figure out in a second. Yeah. For us, we are very focused on procedures. And I think as our customers that we work, the ones that embrace the technology, yeah, they follow the same path and same idea.
I'm going to give you one example, and Jack, I'd love your thoughts on this. So I was working with a client recently, and so they've got an existing PIM system with a whole bunch of product data in it. But so they had, for example, they sell belts and other industrial products, and they have fitment information in their PIM system that says, okay, this item that we sell works with these devices or these pieces of machinery. Then they say, okay, we also have a cross-reference in there. We have the OEM part number, and then we have our part number that corresponds to the OEM part number. So we know cross-referencing. So if the customer searches by their OEM part number, they can find our equivalent, okay? So that's in the PIM. But what wasn't in the PIM, after I did some internal interviews with sales teams, was there was a whole lot of knowledge around, in a specific situation, okay, let's say a customer orders a product that we're out of stock of, okay? Let's say it's a belt. We know, because of our 30 years of experience in this industry, that this application of this belt goes into an application that uses an idler pulley or a tensioner of some variety. And therefore, even if we're out of stock of this exact belt, as long as we have another belt that has the same specifications, but it's within a half an inch or less of the length of the belt that they ordered, it's a direct drop-in cross-referenceable product. So then the sales rep will ring up and say, that thing you ordered, we don't have it, but we do have an alternate product that I think I know what it's going into. Can you just confirm that it's going into this thing? This product will work. Do you want me to send you that one instead? And then they'll say, yes, swap it out. And then they'll do that. That kind of data, which is this tribal knowledge, this institutional, this industry knowledge, that's not anywhere in any system anywhere. And it's this type of product information and product data that I think these businesses, they don't understand how valuable that information is. But when they're going through major change, whether it's staffing change or digital transformation change, these are the perfect opportunities to uncover that tribal knowledge, get it out of people's heads, get it into a structured data set, and then we can make that a one-to-many thing. And oftentimes, these people do not want to relinquish that knowledge until they're ready to retire, because up until then, they're like, hey, no, that's the secret sauce, man. I've been in this industry for 30 years. You ain't going to fire me because I'm the only person in the industry that has this information, and I'm out there outselling the young guns because I know more than they do, because I've had more experience than they do. But when they go to retire, they're like, hey, I'm not protecting my job anymore. Now I can spill the beans. And now we can get this into digital data. And so it's the perfect time when people are ready to leave a business. That's the perfect time to pounce and suck all that information out of them.
Yeah. That's like job security, right?
Yes.
Yes. Like only I knew it up here.
Yes.
You know, I was thinking about a recent implementation, actually one we're in the progress of now. That is a safety supply company that sells uniforms and apparel, and they sell to different industrial companies, large construction companies and things of that nature, all that have very unique requirements for how they want to place orders. Much more complex than your typical, I have X dollars to spend, I am buying said product, right? But rolling points or credits, stipends, if you will. And every one of their clients, every one of their clients is saying, okay, I want $1,000 to roll over, and it needs to be on the anniversary date versus January 1 date versus whatever. And then do I want them to roll over? Do I want them to not roll over, use it or lose it? And then how much do they get on a recurring basis? And do I limit how many products that they can buy from a certain catalog versus another catalog? And all this is notes that some person has written down that they have to like remember as their customers are placing orders, which to me is just like, this bad. Like, how do we get out of that? How can we create automations and rules, configurations set in the back end so you don't have to worry about this anymore? You set it and forget it. You just know you have the capabilities with a good provider like us. We can plug it into the platform. And then all of that tribal knowledge, so to speak, just goes by the wayside. You don't need it anymore. Now you can actually focus on your job, which is actually the sales process, not the technicalities of when you can order, when you cannot, and how much, and everything else. It's all good when you have 2 or 3 clients and you can manage that. But if you're trying to scale, what's 100 of those customers look like, right? What's 1,000 of those customers look like? There's not enough notepads in your office to sustain the level of information you would have to keep on a regular basis. And this is one area that we're really doubling down on the B2B platform for CART, because there's just not a lot of players serving this space. And Jason, I think last time I was on your podcast, I even mentioned it. And then we got to hang out at the B2B Online in Florida. And it was my first time going to that event. And as I'm going through the aisles, I see all of these great platforms and vendors, service providers that are talking about manufacturers and relationships with suppliers and how they are driving better user experience, right? With that particular relationship. And that's really when people say B2B is a lot of what they mean, but no one is really out looking for the distributors and how they sell to their customers. And so if they need a portal, which is what's going to happen if you need punch out, now these clients, these customers that have all of these clients buying from them through portals all need punch out, or a lot of customers. And now Daniel's job of education, right? Which is really, I'm educating people, right? Now we have to educate all of our clients to say, hey, this is now an offering. Is no longer CART going after these RFPs, but our customers going after these RFPs and understanding they can integrate with Coupa, they can integrate with Work, right? And knowing that all those are available. And so that's another reason why I wanted to have this fireside chat today is anyone that's working with CART or GreenWing or anyone else that is selling to other businesses, if punch out is a requirement or connecting these systems is a requirement, there are vendors here that can work with you and help enable that for you so that you can really unlock your growth, right? And it's education. And Dan, you made a good point about it earlier. Like, it's not sales. It's just making sure that everybody knows what's out there, what's available for them, and how they can adopt it and scale their business doing it.
And this is a discussion, and Dan, I'll get your take on this one. Over the last couple of years, I would say the greater than thought when I started doing this that it would be like 50-50. 50% would be pure play B2Bs that come to me and they need help automating. And maybe 50% would be D2C brands that decide to establish strategic wholesale channels. But that's not really how it's worked out. It's worked out that like 80% are pure play B2B businesses, manufacturers, wholesalers, distributors, and like 20% are D2Cs. But I've seen the interest from D2C brands accelerate, particularly over the last 6 months, particularly as mega brands like Allbirds have just about gone out of business. They were staunchly anti-wholesale for years. They were a famous D2C brand. They were a D2C darling.
Okay.
And now they've thrown a Hail Mary into distribution. And they've said, oh, God, we're just about ready to go out of business. Our stock price is down 98.5% since IPO. Let's throw a Hail Mary to distribution and try to get out there in front of more people to potentially buy our product. Nike famously has pulled back from its D2C play and gone back into wholesale distribution in a massive way and reopened wholesale accounts in a massive way. When you look at the next, say, you forecast the next 12, 24, 36 months of growth, how many of your potential customers are pure play B2Bs? They've always been B2Bs. They'll always be B2Bs versus D2C brands that are going, hey, if we want to establish wholesale routes to market, a lot of our wholesale accounts that we're talking to, they procure electronically. And they're telling us, we've never even heard of this e-procurement thing before. We don't use that term in the D2C world. So they're going, wow, if I want to unlock some of these key distribution accounts, I have to be able to fulfill electronically, and I have to be able to take orders electronically. I have to be able to supply my catalog electronically. And that doesn't mean emailing them a CSV. That means plugging directly into their procurement system. How big of an opportunity do you think that is for the next couple of years?
So I think you're talking on the manufacturing end would be how I look at those companies.
DTC is a manufacturing brand. That's what they are.
Yeah. So it's manufacturers now that are saying, hey, do I need a middleman? Like, what's this guy's value? I guess Nike had that question, like, oh, they're pretty valuable, so let's take a step back because business wasn't good. Yeah, so they made maybe a colossal mistake, but it's company to company, right? For us, I would say probably similar with you. It's probably 80-90% pure B2B distributors, and then we have that 10 to 15% manufacturer, but that's growing too, again, because they're exploring it. And you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you, right? Because they're the distributors. So you got to, a lot of them, they dabble, they put their toes in the water. They want to see, maybe we'll start with a few products, but they also want to keep their distributors happy. So they want to alienate those guys who are also selling, but wait a minute, we're competing against you now. So it is. You can't have you can't have your cake and eat it too. But we're seeing it similar. It's almost like they're doing pilot programs where they're trying it. I think you're going to see more and more, obviously, because it is. It's like you start to ask, do we need a middleman? All right, where is the value? And if it's there, you have to evaluate that. And do we want to keep that path? We're successful. And we're going to continue being successful. But in a case like Allbirds, you said it was a Hail Mary, and who knows what else? Mismanagement, who knows what may have caused their demise. But I think I'm just thinking of different conferences we go to. I talk to a lot of different in the lab supplies, a lot of laboratory manufacturers. And They are. They're start more than ever, I would say. Whereas 5 years ago, it was no. We're 100% focused on selling through wholesale and distributor channels. At least half of them now are starting. And they don't go like, and they're not, a lot of times they're not really open, but yeah, we're starting now to sell. If somebody comes to us, we'll sell them direct, but we don't let it be known. But the more that you have see companies being successful at it, that are successful at it, and there's news, you're going to see other ones follow suit. So yeah, but for us, it's still, I think, sensitive for some manufacturers, but they're again, it's where you make money. They're trying to figure out how can we make money and survive. At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, is being the most successful business that we can be. And if it means going direct to consumer, that's a model maybe we should follow.
Or vice versa. So a manufacturer who only, like, they start out and they sell purely direct to consumer themselves, whether it be through their own retail stores or through their own online stores, et cetera. But what they find, and what I'm seeing, is they're becoming much more open to frontier and beachhead markets, taking on distributors in those regions. So they're saying, hey, okay, my home market is the United States. I'm going to run that 100% D2C. But in Europe or in EMEA, or in APAC or ANZ, I'm going to appoint some distributors down there, but those distributors want to e-procure through me to automate their procurement process, and they're not going to do it manually. They are not going to buy from me manually. So they need a punch-out system. And it's interesting that you pointed that out about distributors, because I'm seeing them not only supply as a distributor to their customers a punch-out solution, but they're pushing upstream to their manufacturing suppliers. They're saying, we also want to procure by e-procurement. So therefore, we need you to provide punch out to us so that we can order from you as a manufacturing supplier to us. So the distributors in the middle, they're having punch out on both sides of the business. And that's super interesting to see.
So complex. My head starts to spin when we start having those conversations, to be honest with you. And that's what's so unique about B2B and Jackal. When you have these meetings and you're like, everyone is different and everybody has these, I'm just like, all right, we're going to have a conversation offline with our team to try to wrap our heads around how we're going to build a solution for this. Yeah, I mean, punch out, there's so many different ways to do punch out that people come to us. I'm like, that's not even punch out, because there's something like, no, it's not punch out. There's things like double punch out, where, and that's, I'm not even going to get into that, but there's so many different ways people will do to try to sell. But it sometimes it's all like you almost overthink yourself too. You just want to make it, like we said, meet your customer where they're at. You want to make it easy. That's all it is. You want to make it easy for your customers so they don't leave you for the competition.
Yeah. So, anytime I have a conversation with prospects,
are they coming to you? Sorry, how often are they coming to you? And so they start the discussion. Hey, we need to set up a digital catalog. We know that. We know we need to offer a trade portal or a sales portal, whatever it is. But then they go, oh, geez, now we got to think about fulfillment. Now we got to think about order management. Now we got to think about order orchestration, because we still got orders coming in through these other channels and through sales reps and through third-party agents and that sort of stuff. And how often do they come to you and you go, have you thought about this? Okay, that's cool. We can supply the e-com piece. That's great. But have you thought about these 5 other things that it's not as easy as just standing up a trade portal and you're off to the races? There's a lot more to consider in those environments, especially if they've got a store network where they maybe want to fulfill via will call collection, or maybe they want to fulfill from store in some instances, but yet they maybe have a DC for some regions, and then maybe they have a 3PL for other regions. And you're going, hey, how are you going to orchestrate all this? Because your ERP ain't going to do this. So you need some help with the logistics, order orchestration, and analytics piece. And that's where a platform like Cart can come in and say, hey, look, we're turnkey end-to-end solution for everything related to commerce.
Yeah, and we do that a lot, right? I can't tell you how many customers that we have that have multiple 3PL providers, each of them requiring the user to pick out their own shipping method and rate, with discounts applied to it on top of that. On top of, hey, some are payments with credit cards, some are paying with points, some are paying with stipends, some are paying with purchase orders, right? And so we find a way to bring all of those together. That's what we do really well, right? And we're a complex platform that allows for a lot of that to happen on the back end. And we talk to all of those different 3PLs and all of those different payment platforms that they need us to integrate with. And that's why people come to us, because we have a wide breadth of feature functionality and integrations that's already built in, where you don't need a plugin or another development company or like another iPaaS type like platform, like where you're connecting to all these different things. Most of the times we have it, but we're connecting directly. But at the end of the day, everything's going to go through one e-procurement channel, like via GreenWing. If they're using us and need that connection, we'll be able to facilitate that. And so that's why we rely on partners and why we rely on such a great dev team to be able to build out native functionality that has a really robust API system so that we can talk to others very well. But we've also been in business long enough to where we have flat file integrations and scheduled imports and exports. And so even if it's an archaic platform, which we see all the time from these companies that are trying to say, oh, I'm trying to do e-commerce for the first time, what do you use? And they say, have you ever heard of? And then they just name something off the shelf that sounds like it came from like a kid's like kindergartner book. I'm like, I don't even understand that word. Like, is that a company? Is that like a software? Is that an ERP? And they're like, oh, no one else uses it. I had a client ask me like, hey, let's join on a call. And I'm like, hey, I'll send you a Zoom invite. And he's like, no, let's go on Rainbow. And I'm like, dude, you're in. He goes, yeah, we use it for everything. I'm like, dude, I didn't even heard of that company. And so a lot of these companies are just stuck in these old platforms. And that's why it's important to have a company that knows and has been in the industry and working with people that have experience in doing that and working with those different file types to be able to get something done. Because these companies are stuck 20 years ago, 30 years ago. They're not thinking about AI. They're thinking about their ERP being sunset next year. Think about that. That's what they're worried about. Right? Yeah, absolutely. And we're here to partner with our clients. But I was mentioning earlier, like a lot of our prospects are coming to us. And the education and the relationship piece is just so important. And it's just top of mind for me right now. You know, if you have a customer come to me or a prospect to us, or even a client saying, listen, I sell jeans or I sell fire retardant Nomexes. Okay. I want to sell to Exxon, but I can't. I want to sell to Chevron, but I can't, right? Like big companies that need large purchase orders. How do I do that, Jack? And I'm like, show me the RFP. And they're like, here's a list of all the things that we don't do. And I'm like, but when you partner with Cart, you can't. I can get you integrated with this. I can operate you this way. I can meet these security standards. I can work with them to build an implementation strategy that fits their needs that they're mentioning in these statement of requirements. And they're not used to going to a technology platform and getting that kind of response or that level of interaction even. They're just saying, here's your plan level, just do it. Like they're not getting real sales assistance. And that's why I really try to tell everyone in my division that we are in the relationship business at the end of the day. Like the technology is great. We all love the technology. But if you're not educating your customers, like Dan mentioned, and explaining to them how they can really adopt this technology so their business can scale and look at us as a partner, right? Now it opens up everything where they just felt like, this can't do it. It's just not meant for me. You can, and you don't have to take no for an answer, right? Take that RFP, take an RFI, bring it to us, and let us get on a call with you and the vendor or like the prospect they're trying to land. Let us get you the documentation you need to be able to answer these questions accurately and professionally. And I think that just, you don't see that in a lot of vendors nowadays. And I think it's a shame, but that's why Cart's like really, that's why we're trying to ramp that up.
I think too, Jack, right? That a lot of people, when they're talking to you, they don't even know what they need. They don't even realize that sometimes they had that conversation is trying to figure out to understand what they actually need. They might think they need something, but they really don't. They actually need something else.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I have a client that sells to like state troopers, right? They sell to government officials that are buying munitions or holsters or gear, right? And they're like
tactical gear, basically.
Tactical gear, right? And they're saying, Jack, like I just got this RFP. I want to fill it out with your technology. Can we do that? And I'm saying like, why don't you send me the RFP and I'll get you the responses you need? And they're just like, whoa, you'll do that for us? And I'm like, it's your business that you're gaining. That's business that we're gaining. Like we're all in this together. Like we've just helped you land more business and grow. And now you get to adopt more B2B features. And now we get to understand not what the distributor wants, because a lot of times, to Dan's point, they don't, right? Now we get to understand from the actual end result with the RFPs and RFIs are saying that we're not being invited to, so we can start to see the technology gaps that might exist. So now we can build a better mousetrap, right? Like we can actually build a better platform built for this, because now we're getting the firsthand insights into what's driving demand and and why, why are they asking for this? And so it's really interesting. The more you dive in and the better relationships you have with these distributors, the more valuable things that you can build, the more insight you can gain. And so yeah, it's been fun for the past year and a half,
And Dan, how often do inbound coming into you, how often are customers in like your distribution, wholesale distribution layer, how often are they caught in a similar situation? They're going, cool, we want to penetrate this new vertical or this new category or this new market where there's some established players or whatever, but we're putting pitches out there and they're coming back to us and they're saying, do you do this? Do you do this? Do you do this? And can you integrate with our system over here? Can you integrate with our e-procurement module? Can you integrate with our demand planning module? Can you integrate with our e-procurement module? Can you do those things? And they go, we haven't even heard these terms. We haven't even heard these words before. This is a whole new freaking language that we're being presented with on the procurement side. Can you help us? And then maybe they type into Google, for example, or they type into ChatGPT because maybe they haven't even heard the term punch out before, right? And they go, what the hell? They don't want to look stupid in front of the buyer or the procurement specialist. So they write it down and then they go back to the office and they ChatGPT punch out. And then they find you as a punch out provider. And then they open that dialogue and they go, hey, we're getting asked for stuff we never even heard of before.
Yeah, and they do. And they'll lean on us then as the go-to, like for all those meetings with the technical. And we're happy. Again, that's part of the software as a service. It's part of the job. It's 24/7, and we don't mind doing it. We fill out, it's similar to Jack. We'll fill out those RFPs when they get those questions because we'll answer everything they need and we'll send it back, so they don't have to worry about that aspect. But it's all the time. But what I always tell the customer, I'm like, the good thing about doing this, I know it's painful now, and the first go around, it always is. They'll never leave you, and that's why I say they really won't. Especially in B2B. B2B it's so relationship driven. It's all the earth, the personalities of people. It's all built around that. And by doing this, whether it's government, whether it's a hospital system, by you doing that, you'll see they'll never leave you. And it's hard for them to leave you because once you have that integration, it's great. You're making it easy. So that's usually, honestly, it typically is an easy sell. And then they look actually at the contract because that's with pilots. Oh, that contract is huge. So of course, it's a no-brainer. We have to make this work. And then, from there, it's just, it gets easier. It's like, all right, this is up and running. Who else? Let's see who else we can talk to. And then we're happy to lead that conversation too. To those, and what's great now that we've been in this space long enough, it's a niche within a niche, is that we've usually have done integrations before with certain companies, so they know us now, and we actually on a first name. So we're getting to the point now, which is great, is where they're actually recommending, yes, or saying, hey, here, if you don't know punch out. And again, these companies are using e-procurement too. They understand. They get that these companies aren't Amazon. They're not Grainger. They're not going to know what punch out is.
They're not they're not any of those guys.
Yeah, so they're super flexible, and they're look, here's who you can talk to. Here are resources. So that's what's great about being in the business long enough, not being a fly by night, is that we can provide that support. But it's all the time. It's every day, and that's fine. But that's fine, Les. That's just the business we're in.
I have to explain punch out to a lot of prospects because what does that mean? And I'm like, once I explain it, they're like, oh, that's it.
It still doesn't make sense to this day. I told Jason our first call, I honestly think it was a bunch of Gen Xers in the 90s who were playing Mike Tyson's knock it punch out. And they're like, about it. When punch out was created, it was like 1997 under Reba, and it was in California. So he's a bunch of 28, 29-year-old.
It lines
smart.
Up.
It's just, I'm just thinking, they're playing like, what's a good, cool, sticky term? It's silly. It's punch out.
Let's brand this. Let's brand this in a way that just people ask questions about it.
Yeah, it just makes no sense, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
And how often what I'm seeing more and more is that in the B2B world for years, for decades probably, they have been so focused on individual point systems. So CRM, they'll have the head of sales go out and find a CRM system that they think will work for sales, and maybe they go with Salesforce or they go with Copper or whatever it is. Then the head of finance and their financial controller will go out and they'll find an ERP. And they'll say, okay, cool, this ERP I think can do most of what we need it to do. And then they'll go, okay, cool, I'm a manufacturer, so I need to be able to manage product lifecycle. So I'm going to go out and find a little PLM system over here that's going to manage my product lifecycle. Then I've got my marketers and my product people. Cool, I'm going to go out there and find a PIM system that's going to help me with collate and collect and organize all my product data. So they go out and they find all these little esoteric point systems to help them do their little pieces of their job. And then when they call someone like me in, they've never had an enterprise architect in the business. They've never looked at the business holistically. And now all of a sudden they're bound to a lot of this software that like they're joined at the hip with these systems. They got 10 years worth of data in some of these systems, and trying to architect them out of kind of this patchwork quilt of technologies that oftentimes aren't even system integrated at all, like that becomes really difficult. And whereas if they'd have called someone like me, or I'm guessing that oftentimes they rely on you guys as the de facto enterprise architects for digital commerce, because they don't have anybody else in the business that can do it. They don't know that somebody like me exists, and they're not going to go necessarily and rely on an SI who's pushing their barrow of the little piece that they work on and deliver. And so they don't even know what the term enterprise architecture is. But oftentimes those decisions around technology and the commitments that they made in terms of licensing and investment of getting those technologies implemented, sometimes it's a 5-year or a 10-year ROI pipeline on that stuff. So they're just committed. They are committed. Whether it's good or bad for them, they're committed. And so how often do you see people basically leveraging you as the enterprise architect of everything related to digital commerce, even though that's not what you're paying us to do, but we have to do it to continue to win business in the market at the same time?
Jason,
Is that for me or Jack?
Both of you. I'm sure it happens to both of you.
First, you do have to be careful. I'm sure Jack will agree that you don't overpromise, and that's a mistake too for all of us. We can, when we're trying to get a sale, sometimes we say yes to everything, but you do have to be careful, because you don't want to get blamed when there's a problem and it's not your fault, but I guess it could be construed that way if there's a break in another system, but you're supposed to be the guy that can fix it, and that's not the case. That happens a lot. And one of the things that we do now too, actually, is we try to ask, and it's not a requirement yet, but we do like to have somebody technical on that, whether it's a big size cut, that we have a point person, because we just have found that if there is an issue, it will get fixed much faster if we have a point person that's technical that we can work with to resolve it, rather than just having the mom and pop or just non-technical people where it gets dragged on and then you get blamed. Yeah, for us, it does. It's all the time. But I think, again, writing procedures, doing this long enough, when we actually reach out to people, you need to have a technical person that we can work with through this. I don't know about Jack, if he has similar or not, but yeah, for most companies, even that we're saying, if you want to be successful in the B2B space, when you're making a new hire, an IT person that's proficient somewhat in technical and coding or understanding, like you said, ERP or networks, is a must. I would say at this point, right? If you're a distributor or manufacturer, whoever that is, you need to have a team of technical people.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, Dan. If you are hiring, having independent contributor type qualities, having been hiring someone that's actually worked in the weeds is important to have. If all they've done is management their whole career, the odds are that they're going to come in and make a difference from a technical perspective is very low, right? And so just keep that in mind. But Jason, I think you're talking about ramifications of being a consultant. Once they realize that you can add value or you have thoughts on as much as you do, they're going to pull you into all conversations. That's why I try to keep arm's length when it gets. I definitely can dive into the weeds in a lot of accounts, because I personally do have a career in being a contributor, right? I used to be a developer, I used to be a designer, I built sites. Like I get it. I've worked with clients on my own business before jumping into the world that I'm in today, and so I have a unique perspective that kind of gives me an edge a little bit in the teams that I manage. But when clients come to me asking for technical advice on areas that aren't necessarily within scope of our agreement, 9 times out of 10, they're overcomplicating things. Right? Like Jason, you brought up clients that are using PIM data, and even the example where you found like a key piece of information that's not missing there. I've had clients come to me that are in the middle of a 6-month implementation, and they're like, Jack, we need your opinion on this. And I'm like, guys, you have 12 SKUs. Like, why do you have a PIM? What, you guys are gotten so far into this because everyone's told you that you need
to have a PIN. You have to have a PIN.
You have to have a PIN. You have to have a PIN. I'm like, you have 12 items, like they're not that complicated. I'm like, you don't need all of it. You just come on, man.
This is your PIN, bro. Come on.
Yeah. It's like you're spending way too much money.
Yeah.
If they want a transparent answer, a candid answer, they'll know to come to me and I'll give them one. So it may not be what they want to hear, but it will be the truth every time. So
love it. Listen, gentlemen, we've been chatting almost an hour here. What do you think, if we were to look out over 2025, it's early days, we're right at the end of January here, what do you think are going to be the most transformative changes for the B2B world over the next 12 months? What are the biggest challenges and opportunities you are seeing right now for manufacturers and distributors to be able to do things better in 2025 than they ever have before?
Dan, I'm going to let you start.
That's a big question. Honestly, I don't, it's hard to say. You want to go back to AI, which is so buzzy, but the biggest news this week was obviously like DeepSeek, right, with the China. And that just rocked everybody. Because wait a minute, you don't need NVIDIA chips to run a powerful system. And who knows, again, it's China, so you don't know how much of that's true, whether we only had $5 million in
and it was a hedge fund that was putting out the press release.
Yeah, let's dig a little deeper and we find out the truth. But that's fascinating to me, regardless. It is fascinating because I think AI is going to continue. It's going to get better. It's the predictive stuff that you see with Amazon Alexa, where when you buy, and it'll tell you, hey, you bought this from so-and-so, you might need it. You're going to see more and more of that, I think, with B2B, with distributors, where with their site, if you have customers, they're out of this stock or this product, so it can make suggestions. So I think AI is going to continue to get better. It's still somewhat rudimentary, pie in the sky, but that's going to continue as companies dive into that. It's exciting. For me, it's way above my pay grade, and it fell flat. Blockchain in the supply chain. Like 6 years ago, I'm like, oh my God, that's the cure to everybody's problem.
Digital tools for everything.
Digital ledger online. Yeah. And there are companies that are doing, I know IBM's got a pretty cool product. They've worked with like Walmart doing pilot programs, and Heineken had something that was pretty successful. But I haven't heard, like, I'm hopeful that 2025 is a breakthrough for blockchain. Just the fact, the security, the transparency, the visibility, that everybody on that specific supply chain has access to all those transactions. It makes it secure. It just, that for me that's what I'm hoping is going to be the game changer for B2B, is that supply chain.
Yeah. I think it's similar. My thoughts are similar to what you just said, Dan, but I think AI it's not going anywhere. It's definitely here. Hamper expectations on ways to use it, but understand your competitors, especially if your competitors are very large companies, will be using it. Maybe not to deliver better user experiences out of the gate, but to drive prices down and speed of delivery. Like I can 100% see their cost of goods being lowered because less people and more robotics and things of that nature that are being adopted throughout manufacturers. And I can see that these larger players separating themselves from the rest by offering products at a lower price than they've ever done it before, and delivering it at a faster pace and getting out the door and manufacturing at a faster pace than ever before, especially with the trends with the new president-elect and like manufacturing in the USA. That's going to also reduce times of being able to have products shipped from the manufacturer's floor to your front door. And as a result of that, what are you doing? Like now, you can maybe put off that ERP integration or that B2B commerce project or whatever, but now it's not like everything else is marching towards the larger companies separating themselves from the rest. Surprise. What are you going to do about it? This is the year to where if you were thinking about, hey, we should at least get on a platform that's not going to sunset this year. We should at least get a digital catalog and all of those things. This is the year to actually make a move, because 5 years from now, you'll wish you would have done something. And sitting on your hands is not going to be the answer to anyone's like goals, right, for this year. And I think everybody would agree with that. And so I do see companies with an appetite to buy, to introduce innovation this year more than they have in prior years, especially the smaller to mid-market brands.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think end-to-end supply chain automation and telematics for me are huge. Mm-hmm. And I'm already starting to see this across Honeywell, for example, across almost every single component that they sell and service into the market. So distributors of Honeywell, for example, aren't just distributors of the hardware. They're distributors of, they have project management, they have field services, they have telematics. And this is where I see visibility across the entire supply chain. For example, a manufacturer knows how much inventory their distributor has in stock because the distributor is telling them on a daily update, this is how much inventory I have in stock. This is how much I want to have in stock. I want you to auto-fulfill when I get down to this min-max level, right? Then the distributors are getting product data feeds, inventory feeds from their customers. And they're saying, hey, we'll just auto-fulfill. You tell us at what level you want us to auto-fulfill. We'll send that out. Then telematics in the heavy equipment industry and almost all form of electronics. Telematics can ET phone home, and it can be like, hey, this filter needs to be changed. And even, Dan, to your point, Amazon, even as just a regular old garden variety consumer off of Amazon, they're making product recommendations based on replacement cycles. So I've got a whole house air filtration system that I bought through Amazon. They know that the average filter life for that particular model is 6 months. Now, what happened? At 6 months, they sent me an email. Oh, you might want to buy a replacement filter. Oh, and here's the link to it. Oh, and here's a discount to go and buy that replacement filter because yours is probably getting a little bit dirty. So I think that this sort of end-to-end supply chain visibility and automation and auto replenishment is becoming a really big deal in the B2B world. It's becoming absolutely massive because the manufacturer then with a lack of visibility, it means they're either overproducing or underproducing pretty regularly. And it's very difficult to gauge demand in the market with accuracy, apart from maybe seasonality or something like that. But if they have visibility into their distributor supply chains and their end buyer supply chains, man, that makes everybody a truckload more efficient. And then we get closer to that sort of just in time. And we saw the danger of just in time during COVID and everything else and how it disrupted supply chains. But at least if you have visibility across every node of the supply chain, then okay, cool. In this region, my distributor is getting low on inventory. Cool. I'm going to need to boost up some manufacturing. We're getting bigger sell-through in this market or this SKU or whatever it is. So I think supply chain integration and automation is going to be a big part of the growth of B2B over the next couple of years.
I agree.
It's exciting. Yeah, it's exciting and it's sexy. Like
awesome stuff.
In the beginning of my career, I never used to think supply chain was sexy, but man, now I think it's just I think it's the coolest thing.
It is cool.
Isn't e-commerce really just supply chain with a pretty face attached to it?
It is.
At the end of the day, yeah. I mean,
it's the heart of it all.
That's what it is. Well, listen, gentlemen,
the engine.
Absolutely epic. I really enjoyed it. We had a great conversation. You guys are two incredible people. And look, you guys are doing some really good things in our industry. And look, I believe a rising tide floats all boats. And I think if we all continue to play our part and we all continue to do a really good job and increase trust in digital across all facets of B2B, it's going to help us all. It's going to grow the pie. And I think that's a really good thing. And it's going to help everybody in the process.
Agreed.
For sure.
Are you a B2B or D2C e-commerce merchant? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to learn how we can help you scale your business.